Hello everyone, my name is Trevor. I'm one of the education officers in Holland Park Ecology Centre. Some of you might know me from coming to us to do forest school and about education sessions, or maybe just for some of our holiday activities, which hopefully we'll be back doing soon enough. In this period of lockdown, we're hopefully going to do a few videos on different topics for you to get out and about in nature, in your local park, in your garden or your local green space to see what out and about. And I'm starting off with one on a phrase called phenology, which is an odd word. If it's an ology, that means it's a science. And in this case, it's a science of season and nature. So how nature responds to the changing of the seasons, how different plants, how different animals react. Maybe they come into flower, maybe they migrate in, maybe it causes them to hibernate, that sort of thing. So the other day, out and about in the park, and I spotted lots of different things that show perhaps spring is on its way. And hopefully you're going to have a chance to get out and about in your local park and spot some of these things as well. Bear in mind, I work in ecology, not in ICT, so there's some good footage here for you to enjoy. The first slot is on snowdrops. So here are some snowdrops. And as you can see, there are very, very small plants that come up this time of year in the early spring, and they grow in little clumps. And as you can see, they are very, very small flowers, quite delicate looking as well. So there they are hanging down, and they're lovely little plants called snowdrops, which herald spring is on its way. Each year, the clump gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you're a gardener, you can dig them up after they've flowered and separate them out and build more little clumps of snowdrops for your garden as well. So they're the first flower of spring. And most people remember snowdrops as the first flower they might see in spring, even pushing up through the snow to show that spring is on its way. Another flower that comes up this time of year is the crocus. So you can see in my little clip here, where I'm pointing the mouse, these are the crocuses here, 1, 2, 3, 4 flowers coming up. If I play my little video, you can see very, very small flowers as well. They do have leaves, which look a little like grass, and the flowers come up. Big, big head to the flower. They can come in all different colours. You can get yellow, you can get white. These ones look like they're going to be purple. And inside, when they open up, they have a bright yellow middle, which is where all the pollen is, the anthers, and that attracts the early bees and flies that they can help pollinate the crocus flowers. And that yellow inside the anthers that contains the pollen, people sometimes farm that and farm the crocuses even to make a special spice, a very expensive spice called saffron, which people use in cooking. And it's still very super expensive as spice goes, and it comes from the anthers and the pollen of the crocus flower. So that's something to look out for. On I went in my park, and the next thing I saw is a flower I'm sure you're going to recognise, and these are daffodils. So as you can see, they're not quite in flower yet. Their buds are coming out, but they'll be up very, very soon, often around Easter time, around St. George's Day is the day that traditionally people think daffodils are in flower. These ones are coming up quite early, and they depend on what weather it's like, how mild it's been. They can come up faster than March time. That bud holds a big, big yellow flower, which is like a big trumpet, sometimes they're called, which nod. And all these flowers I've shown you so far are bulbs, which means they come up in the spring, they flower, then they have a bit of green growth, and then they die down come summertime until they come up again in the new year for the next spring. And like I say, underground, it's a bit like an onion, which is the bulb, and it stores all the energy from flowering and from the green leaves ready for them to push themselves up from the ground next year. I'm sure everyone can see daffodils in their local park, and you might have some in your garden yourself or in on your balcony, and they're a very easy flower to grow. But you have to know your daffodils, because there's a funny story about someone confusing daffodils with onions. But onions are fine to eat, but you must never eat daffodils because they're actually quite poisonous. So I've skipped on to the next slide, which is a lovely flower called a bluebell. And as you can see in my footage, here is the bluebell coming up amongst the moss in this case, and that makes a huge carpet of lovely blue flowers that come up a bit later than the daffodils. So in terms of phenology, as in the time things come out, snowdrops, crocuses, a flower called lesser celandine often comes up. Then you tend to get the daffodils, and in gardens you might get tulips and hyacinths that time of year, and the bluebells tend to be the last of the spring bulbs. In this country, we have 3 main types of bluebell. There is English bluebell, which is a very delicate, dainty looking flower, a Spanish bluebell, which is an introduced species, and them two can breed into each other, creating something called a hybrid bluebell, which contains features of both those bluebells. Ideally, English bluebells is the native species, and we want to keep as many English bluebells as we can, but they do hybridize sometimes. Something else, not a bulb this time, but on the trees, is these, and these are called Hazel Catkins. And if I click on my video, you can see they're like these hanging pollen sacs that hang down, and they're called catkins, and inside them they contain lots and lots of pollen, and when the wind blows, the pollen gets spun into the air and travels hopefully from one hazel tree to another. These catkins are the male flower, and if I looked really closely on that hazel, and I don't think I saw any, the female flower is a much smaller thing on the actual branch itself, often a red tiny flower, and the idea is that pollen from one hazel tree reaches the female flower of another hazel tree, and then they fertilize, which means they connect, and that makes the seed. And you probably know in the case of hazel, that's called a hazel nut, which you might find in Nutella and obviously lots of chocolate, and or just by themselves around Christmas time. Traditionally, people used to eat quite a lot of hazelnuts. You'd be lucky now to find a hazelnut in a park with any hazels actually on it, because the squirrels often get to the hazelnuts when they're not ripe or ready for us to eat, and they take them and eat them themselves. So when people farm hazel in this country, they often have to put big nets over the hazel trees to stop the squirrels or the birds getting to the hazels before they're ready to be picked and ready for us to eat. So that's the Hazel Catkins that you can look out for. And the very last slide I've got to show you is other things that you might see happen in nature this time of year. So this is an owl nest box, which is sort of up in the tree, and this time of year lots of birds are pairing up and looking for places where they can build their nests, and we can give birds a helping hand by putting different nest boxes up on trees. And in Holland Park there are a few owl nest boxes as well. We've also got nest boxes for robins, and the best animal that often goes to nest boxes is blue tits and great tits with little holes on. The owl nest box is a funny looking thing though, and the idea there is that it replicates like a hole in a tree where an owl might nest, and they drop themselves in the top and they build their nest at the very bottom, and hopefully an owlet, which is a name for a baby owl, hatches, and then when it's ready to leave it has to fly its way out of that nest box and find somewhere that its mum and dad can carry on feeding it. It's a funny looking thing, an owl nest box, and this owl nest box is for an owl species called a tawny owl, and they're the most likely owl you're likely to see or hear in your park. They're the ones at night time that make that to-wit, to-woo sound, which is often 2 owls talking back and forth to each other, communicating and defending what they called their territory. I don't know if you heard when I played that slide, you can just hear lots and lots of birds singing, because in the springtime the birds like to sing to defend their territories and attract a mate. And you hear that funny squawking sound in the background, and that is the green parakeets, or to give them their proper name, the ringlet parakeets, which were around now over quite a lot of London, and they originally come from the Himalaya area, but people released them from pet shops or as pets, and they're them green parakeets, and sometimes in parks people feed them as well, but they've got very, very sharp beaks. So that's a quick run through of things that you might find out about in your park. So like us, you might want to send us back some videos or some pictures of things you've seen so we can collate together all the stuff we've seen, and we can note down when things were in flower and what things were coming up next. I expect if you're out in the park soon, some of the trees will start having their leaves coming out, and that's got a cool name called bud burst. And also, I expect lots of the birds will start pairing up, and maybe you'll discover where some birds are nesting. Please, please, please never go near or inside the nest box when birds are nesting, but you can stand close to it, and as long as you're very quiet, you can sometimes hear the tiny chicks cheeping, calling for their mum or their dad to bring them their favourite food, which for most birds in nest boxes is a very, very juicy caterpillar. So I hope you enjoyed my quick run through of phenology, as in the science of nature and seasons, and how things adapt and change and move according to the seasons. And there'll be many more of these videos coming your way in the next couple of weeks. Thank you and take care.